Hi everybody, welcome and thank you for joining me on my channel today. My name is Liz Bostwick and I'm a therapist in training at Redbird Therapy Centre in Toronto, Canada. This is the very last episode of my YouTube series about self-compassion. This series has been in partnership with Redbird Therapy Centre across 3 different platforms. So it's been here with me on my YouTube channel, with my wonderful colleague Anne at her Instagram page at Mental Health Wellness. And then we're going to be doing a free online workshop April 9th, so in just a couple weeks. It'll be myself and Anne and my supervisor leading you through some self-compassion practices, answering your questions about self-compassion. So please, if you're interested and available, follow the link in my description to register, and we'd really love to see you all there. So as I mentioned, today is my very last episode in this series. I can't believe it's gone by so quickly. But today we're going to be looking at self-compassion for the helper. So if you are in the helping profession, if you're a caregiver to loved ones, if you're a parent, or just a really empathetic and caring person, I really hope this episode can help you extend some self-compassion to yourself. We're going to be talking about prioritizing self-care for yourself and looking at compassion fatigue and burnout and how self-compassion and self-care can really help us reduce those experiences. Just a disclaimer, as always, this episode is for educational purposes only, and it's not a substitute for individualized psychotherapy with a licensed psychotherapist. If you are struggling with mental health or you are in a mental health emergency, please get yourself some emergency care or call one of the distress lines that are listed in my description. Thank you so much for taking care of yourselves out there, and let's get started with the episode. So why do caregivers, helpers, parents, empaths, why do we kind of need this reminder that we need self-compassion too? This is such a vital role in society, and many of you are sitting there watching this saying, I don't need praise, I don't need appreciation, I do this work or I care for my family because I love them and I genuinely want to see them do well. Sometimes it's hard to give ourselves self-care and self-compassion because we see the suffering of others and we think that kind of trumps our own suffering. Or maybe we just don't have the time or space to give ourselves the self-care that we need. And the paradox here is that the more we kind of empty our cups to provide support and assistance to other people, and the less we give ourselves time to kind of fill up our cups, that emptiness just continues and we have nothing left to give to ourselves and we have nothing left to give to our clients or our loved ones. So focusing on self-compassion and self-care are really good ways of preventing this kind of emptying of cup and the burnout and compassion fatigue that can kind of follow after that. So when we witness the suffering of others and we kind of spread ourselves really thin and don't take time to care for ourselves, we can develop symptoms or experiences of burnout and compassion fatigue. So to define burnout, burnout is the emotional depletion or feelings of being drained from long-term work-related stress. And then compassion fatigue comes out of experiences of burnout connected with secondary trauma. So secondary trauma is the experiences of trauma symptoms after we witness or hear about someone else's encounter of trauma. So again, this burnout and secondary trauma together can really create this experience of compassion fatigue in helpers or caregivers. So compassion fatigue is, again, this negative emotional experience that is related to helping others and the impact that other suffering has on us when we don't take care of ourselves. So symptoms of compassion fatigue include irritability, anger, a lack of empathy, loss of purpose in your job and in your professional life, as well as your personal life, increased anxiety, and a lot of other things. So if you are experiencing, or if you're noticing your colleagues or your loved ones experiencing any of these symptoms, it would be really helpful to talk to a support worker, maybe a mental health professional, a therapist. And another good way of seeing if you need that extra support is by looking at the Professional Quality of Life Assessment tool. You can go on their website. I will link it in the description, but it's a really helpful tool that can help you. You just answer some questions and it assesses, your levels of burnout and compassion fatigue. And they have some really good resources on there too that tell you some more self-care strategies some ways you can deal with secondary trauma as well. So I really suggest that resource. And yeah, we're going to look at some other resources that we can provide ourselves, including self-compassion and self-care, to really reduce compassion fatigue and burnout and also prevent it. So because self-compassion can be really helpful in reducing and preventing symptoms of burnout or experiences of compassion fatigue, I just wanted to kind of remind everyone about some of the self-compassion practices that we looked at in my previous episodes, just to give you some motivation or ideas of self-compassion practices you can practice if you're feeling burnt out. So prioritizing self-care is a really, really vital way for us to intentionally fill up our cup. As caregivers and helpers, sometimes we feel that we don't really deserve to be given self-compassion or self-care because we don't really need it, or we don't have symptoms of burnout right now. If that's you and you're watching, I would really encourage you just to take a second and bring to mind those people that you provide care for, whether it be loved ones or your clients. Think of those that you support and provide assistance to. And take it a step further and ask yourself, what is a better present than being more compassionate and present with them in the moment? So hopefully this begins to percolate and you kind of recognize, maybe if I'm more compassionate with myself and caring for myself, I can give that to others. And if you feel inclined, you can literally repeat that. You can say, I know that to extend myself to others and give them compassion, I must first give that compassion to myself. And just having that reminder can be an important way for us to increase the self-care that we give ourselves. So we want to recognize this kind of dual process of self-care when we talk about self-care. So one side of self-care is the healing suffering, and then the other side is the cultivating happiness. So the cultivating happiness is kind of that treating yourself with food you like, having really long baths, watching Netflix, all those things that are kind of like the pop psychology view of self-care, which are really important, but by themselves, they don't really amount to self-care. They have to be along with this healing suffering. So the healing suffering is the tougher self-care. So it's journaling, working through emotions with a therapist or with a loved one, a support person, having self-compassion practices and mindfulness practices. This healing suffering is more of a way for us to work past suffering and work past pain, and along with that, cultivating of happiness. Those together kind of create self-care. So how can we use self-care on the job, while we're being a caregiver, while we are helping others, as well as outside the job, to really prevent burnout and prevent compassion fatigue? So I think it's important to create boundaries. So if you are currently working at a job where you leave your home and then you come back from the job, I think it's important to have kind of a trigger behavior. And this trigger behavior can trigger your mind to say, I'm creating a boundary. I'm leaving my professional life in my job and coming home to my personal life. So I like to put on a certain song in the car as a reminder of me leaving that professional life and going home to my personal life. And you can even visualize like shutting the door to your office door, or shutting that door and leaving that there and then coming into your personal life. These boundaries are very important. And then another way of on-the-job mindful self-care, we can kind of use mindfulness in the moment during pain and suffering to notice and name, acknowledge without judgment our feelings, and kind of leave them there to be worked through later. So this can also work as you taking a break, you leaving work for a little bit and going for a walk, really making sure that you're providing yourself with time to eat, taking your breaks, all those kinds of things. If you are working from home right now, if you're a caregiver of loved ones, or you are doing everything through Zoom, you can kind of create those same boundaries by shutting your laptop and saying, like, this is the end of the day. Any of those other trigger behaviors, like having a shower, changing your clothes, anything you're intentionally doing to leave that professional life and go on to your personal life. So I hope some of these self-care techniques and strategies can help you further. And now we're going to move on to a mindfulness meditation that can really help you with that mindful self-care, especially when you're taking a break from your job. So today's guided meditation is from Tara Brach, and Tara Brach is a really wonderful self-compassion practitioner. So the name of the guided meditation is The Reign of Self-Compassion, and we can use this practice when we kind of notice that we really need to be a little bit more mindful of the suffering that we're experiencing and give ourselves some self-compassion for that suffering. So the acronym RAIN, which is recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture, can be really easy for us to remember, and we can kind of go through this practice by ourselves as well, if that's a break at work or after work, anytime we really recognize that we need to provide ourselves that compassion that we give to others. So to get started, as always, you can find a comfortable seat in your chair, or if you're sitting on the ground or lying down, those all work. Just try to feel a little sense of groundedness. You can close your eyes or kind of relax your eyelids and look downward, just as a way to kind of focus inward right now. Just take a few deep breaths. Try to feel any tension in your body relax. Just be in this moment here. However you're feeling, just feel that. Just give yourself a second to recognize you're using this moment to really care for yourself. So we're going to start by beginning to recognize and acknowledge what kind of suffering or pain is coming up for you right now in this moment, if there is any. Maybe you're feeling overexerted from caring for others. Maybe you're feeling a little bit of stress about work. Just begin to sit still and recognize this pain. Notice it, name it. Just begin to recognize it. Then we're going to continue to allow this pain and experience of suffering to just be there as it is. Don't try to fix this pain or avoid this suffering. Just allow it to be there as it is, with no judgment. Now we're going to begin to investigate with curiosity and care. So call on that natural curiosity within all of us. Bring some more forward, focused attention to your pain and suffering. Let's start to see if you recognize what you need in this moment. You may ask yourself, what most needs my attention? How am I experiencing this pain or suffering in my body? Again, approach this with care and attention and without any judgment. Whatever you need in that moment, try to provide yourself with some of that. As we view our own suffering, oftentimes self-compassion naturally arises. So we're going to take this a step further and really look at nurturing ourselves with this self-compassion. So what do you need from yourself to help you? Do you need to have a mental whisper of, I care about you, it's okay, I'm listening? Maybe we need to place a caring hand on our heart or on our cheek. It can be helpful to imagine a radiant light or the warmth from a light coming into our body and offering us that compassion. If this is difficult, we can also imagine a compassionate being. It can be a pet, a really important person, spiritual figure, someone who can provide that compassion for you right now. Just take a second and feel that compassion. Feel it working to ease and recognize the suffering and pain. And allow that to happen. Investigate how this compassion is really working to bring attention to the suffering and support you through it. And when you feel like you're ready to come back into the room, start to wiggle your toes, wiggle your hands. Take some more deep breaths. Slowly open your eyes. Now just take a second and really feel that self-compassion. So we call this after the rain. So after that experience, allow it to soak in and recognize that self-compassion that you gave yourself and bring it with you for the rest of your day. So now it's time for our final journal prompts. So I really hope everyone's been following along with their journals. It can be a really good way to kind of process what we're talking about, write down some reminders and strategies that you can use from this episode as well. So the first journal prompt today is, what are 2 actions of self-care that I can commit to that 1, heal suffering and address suffering, and 2, cultivate happiness and enjoyment. And then journal prompt number 2 is, how can I bring mindfulness practices into my everyday work so I can show myself self-compassion? So that brings us to the end of my Self-Compassion Looking Inward Redbird Therapy series. Thank you so much for watching. I want to send so much thanks and so much gratitude to each and every one of you who has been viewing and supporting and following along with these videos. I really hope they've been fruitful and helpful to you. And I just know that when I was doing this research and learning more about self-compassion and applying it to my own life, I just thought it was so helpful and I learned so much, and I really wanted to share that with others. So if all you've learned from this series is a newfound understanding of how much you deserve to have self-compassion, then that's enough. And if all you've learned from this series is the importance of taking time out for yourself and focusing inward for a little bit, then that's enough. And I really want to commend each and every one of you for going along this mental health journey. It's really hard work, and you're all doing that work, and I want to thank you for taking care of yourselves out there. I do also want to mention that we do have our April 9th online free workshop with myself and Anne and my supervisor, and I would love to see each and every one of you there. I can answer your questions about self-compassion. We can talk face-to-face. You can bring any comments you have. I really look forward to that, and it would be lovely to see everybody there. So if you're interested, please follow the link in my description, and I will see you there. And if not, keep following along with my channel. I'm planning to post some other things soon, but I really just want to say thank you for watching this series, and from the bottom of my heart, sending you so much gratitude, sending you so much compassion and love, and take care of yourselves out there. Thanks again.